but also reportedly, the HBO Last of Us series cost $10 million per episode. The budget for shows keeps getting higher. Every time I hear about a new show, the price of how much every episode costs, like with the Marvel shows and a lot of HBO shows, they tend to put some money into it, like Game of Thrones, which I still haven't finished, and I don't think I ever will. But
which season are you on?
I think I'm on the second season. What happened was I read the first book for school in senior year. I read the book, and then I went through I was going to watch the first season until I realized the entirety of the first book is literally the first season of the show. So I just started in the second season, and I didn't miss anything because early in the show, from what I can tell, they don't change much in comparison to the books. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this show because my opinion is that the games are so much like movies already.
Yeah.
That I don't need a show to, even if they're going to make slight changes, essentially recount the exact same story I already experienced. Instead, there's I don't know if you've played the games, but I'm sure you've seen gameplay. There's a time skip at the beginning. There's a 20-year time skip.
Yeah.
I would like to know what
with Joel and his brother and the Fireflies and all of that stuff.
And Tessa, what they were all doing within those 20 years. I want to know how he met Tessa. I want to know how his brother Tommy joined the Fireflies. I want to know more about that. And hopefully this show actually touches on that. It would be cool if they gave us a bunch of flashbacks to that in between 20 years within this series. But I don't need them to recount the exact same story, even if they make changes. Because
even if the graphics are great, I don't want to see that story over again.
Yeah, I don't need that story again. Like I was watching somebody play The Last of Us for the first time recently, and as I'm doing this, I was like, as you know, I don't know if you know this actually, they're remaking the first game, and I was like, at first I was like, I still think this way. It's like, you know, no harm, no foul, as long as they're still making other games. It's when remaking a game impedes the creation of a new game where I think there's a problem. But if that isn't the case, then it doesn't harm anybody. If anything, it does more good than harm. But it also isn't necessary. The game's almost 10 years old, sure, but it holds up extremely well.
Without a doubt, especially since they remastered it. Yeah,
it holds up ridiculously well. As I'm watching the dude play it, I'm like, wow, this looks like this game could have just came out on the PS4 technically, it came out like the year before the PS4 came out. That's part of why it looks so good, because it was like at the peak of PS3 technology,
right,
bleeding over into PS4 technology. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna play it. Like, they've got my money at this point. But
I'm hoping that huge price tag of 10 million an episode is good writing, great CGI, and maybe some crazy action sequences. Because the game is like sneaking around. I mean, you could go out guns blazing, but and there's so many scenes where you literally would not survive if you did not do the sneaking method. So I'm wondering if that's going to be some big, if the first scene of the first game where I don't know, was it Fireflies that attacked that Boston settlement or wherever they were at, and it was like an explosion and they had to run out guns blazing. I think just with the kind of topic matter that The Last of Us covers, I'd like to see a little bit more of that, because you know that's part of that story. You know that's part of what happened to cause the world of The Last of Us to be what it was. Yeah.
So I was gonna say I can't remember. But yeah, I'm interested.
You said you were gonna watch. You said you were definitely gonna play it.
I was saying I'm definitely gonna play the remake of the game. Especially since the combat in the second game is just so good. If they bring that combat into a remake of the first game, especially with the exact same graphics, it's going to be great either way. A lot of people are afraid because a lot of people didn't felt a certain way about the story of the second game. I personally loved it. I think it was a great game. I think a couple years from now, people are going to change their tune about it, in my opinion. I feel like that happens sometimes, because I feel like a lot of what this game does, the second game specifically, changed. I'm trying to think how to put this. I wanted to use the word revolutionary, but I don't know if that's the exact type of word. But I feel like they did something in this game that a lot of people would be afraid to do.
Yeah.
And a lot of people to go back and look at this and be like, that was a very bold thing to do. And they were very brave for doing that. And some people agree with it, some people didn't. But overall, it was still a really good game.
I think they could have, like, my complaint, and this is, I know part of it is just, it's me personally, my preferences for storytelling. I think the story was good. They just told it in the wrong order. I think that
I agree.
Yeah, I think the story was great. They told it in the wrong order.
Yeah, I think that my biggest problem is, without spoiling anything, is that the characters, the second character you play as, before she does what she does, I think that you should have more time with her. Like, I think that they should have actually went into the town, stayed in the town and got to know people. And then you get to know those characters. You get to like Abby.
Yeah.
Before she does the thing that she does. And then you go, now I'm conflicted.
Yeah.
Because I like the character, but she just did a really horrible thing. And I kind of hate her. And then you have conflicted feelings, whereas brand new character, you don't know who she is. You played with her for like 10 minutes at the beginning of the game, and then she does this horrible thing. And then you don't play her again for like another 10 hours. And then you play her for 10 hours. And it's like, you're going to force people to play this character that they hate? Like, you have to make them like the character first. Like, not have us hate them, then try to force us to like them. I get what they were going for, but I think, and it worked on me actually. I ended up liking her more than I liked Ellie. Not that I disliked Ellie, but I just felt like it was very purposeful that they wanted you to feel that Ellie's revenge wasn't good. Because the whole time I did not feel good about anything I was doing with Ellie. I was just like, she needs to chill. I get why she's upset. Like, it was horrible, but like, it was hard for me to really agree with her. I just couldn't. But on the other side with Abby, everything that she was doing felt far more just.
Right. Like, for example, I
save people, whereas Ellie was doing the complete opposite.
Exactly. Like, so that whole mini storyline where Abby was assisting those two people from that faction that her and her branch of whatever was supposed to be against, and they were like supposed to be hunting them down and whatever. If they would have led with that before even showing what Abby's relationship was to that main character from the first game, it would have been like, wait a minute.
I think you're right. The whole swapping the story around thing.
The story was, it's almost like,
if Abby was like the main character, like, you know how in the first game you play as Joel and then you get a small section where you play as Ellie?
Right.
If it was like you play as Abby and then you get a section where you play as Ellie, that would have been far more interesting, because you would have grew to love Abby. But then, she does the horrible thing and now you're playing as Ellie. And now you're conflicted because you're like, I don't want to play as Ellie and go do this thing because I like that person, but at the same time I don't, because of what they did. Oh man.
The other side of what threw me off, and I made my peace with this later, but the other side of what threw me off about that second game was having the perspective and experiencing the perspective of that other faction, the faction that Abby was a part of, that camp that Abby was a part of. It kind of, in a retcon type way, and I'm just speaking personally, it kind of, I'm not going to say ruined my outlook on the previous game, but part of the appeal of the previous game was the title is The Last of Us, right? And so much of the appeal, so much of the ambiance of that game is like, it's literally just us left. Like, Joel and Ellie, she, at this point, it's been a 10-year-old game. I think I can say, Ellie is immune to the virus or whatever have you, right? So there's this like pressness to save her. And then when you get to that point where you find out what you have to do in order to get the vaccine, whatever, now all of a sudden,
to remind myself when I'm editing it, to put a spoiler alert tag right here.
Right. Yeah, well, I just feel like after 10 years, that's kind of like what do they call it? The statute of limitations. But okay, yeah, so spoiler alert. But no, everyone, even if you take a scene from when you're invading, when you're kind of raiding a certain stage in Last of Us Part 1. If you take a quick look at some of like the goons that you have to like sneak past or you have to incapacitate or whatever, the facial features are really just kind of not bland. They're detailed, but they're very like, they're not individual or unique. It's like, oh, this is just thug number 1, goon number 2. There's no character to it. You don't feel any type of way about the person that you're like, like CQC. That's
They
the part too. They all have characters. They're all people. They have backstory. So now instead of it being The
kill
Last of
someone, they
Us,
cry out like, "Oh my God, she just murdered my best friend for
exact yo, when you
3 years.
take
I've
one
known
of
this
them out,
person my entire life.
right? Yeah,
They're
when
the
you
godparents of my son." Like,
literally like when you're doing your stealth, when you're still doing your stealth takedowns, and they find the body again. This is probably some kind of spoiler, something going on. But when you do the stealth takedowns and one of their colleagues find the body, they're like, oh, they took out Mike, or what they say, a name, right? There's actually a name to it. So it's like, instead of it being this, oh, it's us versus all the rest of y'all, clickers, zombies, whatever, bandits, whatever, and then there's us. But in this game part two, it's almost like you taking it from, I compare it to going from a unicycle to a bicycle, in the sense that like they're both vehicles and they both kind of use the same mechanism to move forward, but one you have to really balance yourself to stay afloat, and the
yeah,
other one is just kind of like, whatever.
the second game is definitely a lot more about perspective.
Yeah.
And how in the first game, like you said, everybody's nameless. You're just bashing people's heads in with bricks and not caring and just having fun. But in the second game, I say this a lot and it makes me sound weird, but I'm a bit of psychopath when it comes to video games. I like violence. I like extreme violence in my games. Like, I pick up a game to be violent. That's why I love hack and slash games, especially the violent ones like God of War. In The Last of Us, even though I'm still enjoying my like tirade of violence, at the same time I'm still like, this is kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so like, I can still like, it's easy for me to separate the fact that this is a video game and none of these people I'm murdering are real. But I can understand there were a lot of people, especially playing in Storm, because this game came out during the pandemic. They were just like, man, this is really bogging me down. This isn't giving me the serotonin that I need in this dark time. It's doing the complete opposite. Whereas for me, I was like, yeah, this is fun. But yeah, it really makes you feel for those characters. Like, a lot of people were very hesitant to kill those dogs in those games. But that's a whole different conversation about people.
Different conversation, yeah.
More about the death of animals than people. That's a different conversation. But it's like, I'm playing a game. I don't care. It's a video game dog. It's not like I'm killing a real dog. But it's also like they force you all the time, because like, if you don't, this dog's going to rip.
And and their senses are way more adept than like the people who are out in the field looking for you and stuff.
But we could, like, that's the one thing that I'm like, you could hate this story all you want. To sit here and try to, because you dislike the story, somehow convince people that the gameplay is bad, you are being ridiculous. We could have a whole conversation about
the gameplay is great.
That game, because I think that in terms of stealth combat, this is only second to Metal Gear Solid 5.
Metal Gear Solid, yeah.
Maybe Dishonored, but I've told you before, I always separate Dishonored because it's in first person. But even though it is a stealth game, it being in first person changes the way it works a lot. So I kind of remove that from the conversation and try to focus on, like, in terms of third person stealth games, the only game this is the second to is the fifth Metal Gear Solid game, because in The Last of Us Part 2, the stealth mechanics are so just, what's the word? Detailed.
Fine-tuned, yeah.
Fine-tuned, yeah, definitely. I forget, there's one section in like a bit of a cul-de-sac type area, and I think it's like the best stealth section in the entire game. There are tons of enemies everywhere. The moment you think you got everybody, and you stand up and you just start walking around like everybody
sees you.
Somebody sees you. It's great. But yeah, we've been talking about Last of Us for a while. This isn't even a video game section. This is the TV and film section.
I'm here like, oh, so what's the next video game? We're still in the TV and film section.